Okay, let's get started. So hello again, my name is Michael Schachter from Product Marketing at Allot. And in today's TST or Telco Security Trends webinar, we'll present the results of our latest worldwide survey of SMBs, small, medium businesses around the world, with a focus on the smaller end of SMB. And the purpose of the survey was to gauge the cybersecurity posture of SMBs, how vulnerable they feel, what steps they take to protect themselves, if at all, and why Allot believes that the results of the survey point to a big business opportunity for communication or internet service providers. And we use the terms CSP, ISP interchangeably in this important arena. So that is what we will be presenting to you. And excuse me, joining me today are Stephen Saw, the Managing Director at Coleman Parks Research. They performed this survey on our behalf anonymously, so nobody knew that it was an Allot survey. And he'll go through the methodology and the results and some of the insights that he derives from those results. So thank you, Stephen, and glad to have you with us. And also Eduardo Holgado, the Allot Cybersecurity Director of Product Management. He covers the products for the SMB market from Allot, and he's going to describe how our offering enables you, the CSPs, to protect your SMB customers and how this lines up with kind of the survey findings and how it drives the business opportunity that I talked about before. So just a couple of kind of housekeeping points before we jump into the data. The session is being recorded. You'll get a link to it. You'll also get the full TST report because we can't cover all the details in this session. But there will be a recording with a link. And so if you have colleagues who missed it or you want to revisit it, we'll be happy for you to do so. And you can share the link. In addition, there's a Q&A button in your Zoom toolbar. And so if you have questions, please use the Q&A window to ask the questions, and we will try to get to them at the end of the session. If we don't find that we have enough time to get to them, we'll get back to you offline. So thank you again for joining us, and I will now turn the session over to Stephen Saw from Coleman Parks Research. So over to you, Stephen.
Thanks, Michael. Always a pleasure to join you on the webinars, these Allot webinars, and present findings. And welcome to all the visitors as well. So yeah, I'm going to walk you through the results of this recent study. As you can see on screen, we went to small, medium businesses and even small home offices. If you go to the next slide. There's a range of different company sizes, so anything from one person, a one-man band, up to 50 employees, spanning across North America and Germany. It's an online survey where participants took part, about 15 questions, and we managed to survey 450 in total. Okay. So I'll take you through some of those findings as we go through. Just to give you a bit more context, so let's not forget that these respondents that took part are not IT experts. They're busy individuals. I forgot to include some of those have a manufacturing business or a high-tech business or work in professional services or healthcare or legal. So, these are very sort of time-poor, highly experienced individuals, but not in IT, which is, when it comes to asking them about, well, who manages the IT security in their company, it's no surprise that 3 in 5 or 6 in 10 companies don't have a dedicated full-time person, and a lot of it is sort of outsourced or sort of juggled between them. So, which is quite interesting. Next slide. Thank you. And the cybersecurity solutions they currently have in place protect them things like firewalls, endpoint security, routers with security features from their CSP. So let's dive into some of those results. So we have done this survey previously, asked the same set of questions in 2022. You can see that data is highlighted in pink, and this year's data is highlighted in blue. And that's important. And we put them side by side to look at how trends are developing to give us an indication of how behaviors are changing, attitudes are changing, etc. So it's really important to have those side by side. Looking at this particular question, which you can see is along the bottom of the slide, we're asking, has your company experienced a cybersecurity incident in the past year and last 12 months? And what you can see here is that around move this out the way. You can see there's been an increase in awareness of those who have experienced one or more cybersecurity incident in the last year, and that's on the increase. So it's moved from 16 to 18%. So it's an indicator that it's increasing. And then there's the remaining are saying they've had an incident, they're not sure, or they're certain they haven't had one. But as we know, in reality, some of these things go under the radar, and awareness isn't that as high as it might be in reality. We then asked what type of cybersecurity incidents they've experienced. And you can see at the top there, in fact, there's not much change between 2022 and 2023, so pretty much the same in terms of the type of incidences they've experienced, those being viruses, malware, data breaches, phishing, etc. So they're still experiencing the same type of threats today as they were 12 months ago.
Yeah, and as I think we'll see, the awareness is a key factor, because we have other indications, and we'll get into them, that the situation is actually worse. But as Stephen pointed out, these are not necessarily cyber savvy individuals, and that's part of why they're such an attractive target to the bad people out there.
Yeah. We then asked them, so what are the type of cyber-related risks that they consider to be the biggest threat to their current business? And you can see some blue up arrows. That means there's an upward trend. Things are building from this year. And that's specifically around threats via laptops and mobile devices that connect remotely to corporate assets. So that's basically born out of working from home. There's also using personal devices to do business as well. And that's introducing vulnerabilities and also outdated technology. So those kind of threats are on the increase as compared to last year. And then looking at concerns about employees using applications that could put IT security at risk, you can see it's about the same as last year. So around 6 in 10 are concerned that their employees are putting IT security at risk. And that seems to be higher in the larger end of the SMBs and also in the high-tech sector. So those in the high-tech sector might be a little bit more savvy with this kind of stuff, given their industry. So it's quite an indicator that 83% are concerned about their employees. So some really strong numbers here. We then asked them, do you have a solution or service in place to control applications and website use? And you can see that there's more stuff being blocked. Yes, we block cyber threats like ransomware and phishing and malware. That's significantly increased since 2023. Inappropriate content, that's kind of dropped a little bit, but I think that's because maybe they've addressed that issue in 2022. It's not happening as much, et cetera, et cetera. So interestingly, the high-tech sector is best protected, but even then, there's 1 in 4 that still feel vulnerable. So even those who are kind of tech savvy are still vulnerable in this area.
And we could also add here that people think that they're taking steps to protect themselves, but for example, IoT devices, which even in small businesses are becoming more prevalent, are typically unprotectable within themselves. Like you can't download an antivirus onto your, your smart doorbell or your camera or your printer or your thermostat or any of those, smart devices. And so they may have put something on one laptop and think that they're now protected, but in fact, other devices are at risk.
So when it comes to selecting a cybersecurity solution, we ask them what's the most important criteria. And we can see that things are starting to move since 2022. Price is at the top. So these companies are price sensitive, which makes sense. They're small, and bottom line really matters to them. A complete and comprehensive protection is on the increase as well, and that's probably due to a more awareness around cybersecurity threats. They're becoming more sophisticated. You'll see that the number of attacks has increased as well. Simple to implement is something that's very important, and like we said, they're not savvy. They in IT, they've got their day-to-day roles to take care of, and they want the confidence and trust from a highly reputable provider that they will be protected. Interestingly, we've seen this increasing year on year now, is hassle-free. So they want something that they can quickly access, or is done for them, where they don't really have to, get into the nuts and bolts of setting up their cybersecurity solution. So hassle-free is something that's really important to them.
Yeah, so not surprisingly, SMBs, they're small, like Stephen said, so they want a good, inexpensive, hassle-free, comprehensive solution, which I think probably applies to all of us as well.
But there are roadblocks, or barriers to improving their current IT security position. Cost again has come up. So there's this perception that cost of technology and services is something that's stopping them from getting the right security protection. Too many products and services to secure. The multiple devices, and like we saw, there's personal devices, there's other devices remotely connecting. So a lot of stuff happening there that needs securing. Bringing in an IT consultant or professional to solve their issue is again, that's the perception that needs to happen, and that's expensive. And then there's sort of lack of knowledge as well. What do I actually need? There are indications that there's low awareness across in terms of what threats they've either have or haven't had, et cetera, et cetera. But really, I mean, people are becoming more and more busy, as you can see at the bottom there. So the employees are too busy to focus on IT security, and it's not really part of their job. So and that ties into this sort of hassle-free, low price, hassle-free, low maintenance kind of need from a security provider.
Okay.
So when we ask them, who should have the responsibility to provide you or your business with cybersecurity services? And IT system integrators high and managing security service providers as well. But as we've already seen, those are they're quite expensive. But what's interesting is telco or CSPs or ISPs is around 4 in 10 are saying that's what they're looking to. So or even 2 in 5 look to their CSP for cybersecurity. So but what's interesting is that's higher in healthcare as well. So there is a role for telcos to take ownership over providing cybersecurity to their customers. And as we've seen, there is a route in which is making sure it's hassle-free, easy to access, and cost-effective.
Yeah, and I would add here that 4 in 10 are looking to you, but that doesn't mean that the other 6 wouldn't be responsive if you turn to them. So we really believe there's a serious opportunity here, because it's a poorly served and underserved market segment that you're already connected to, because you're their service provider.
Yeah. And even though they've said price is a bit of a barrier, there is still this willingness to pay for security. Their business, because cybersecurity puts their business at risk. They need to continue their day-to-day roles, and therefore, they're starting to realize the importance of having something in place that's comprehensive, and they are willing to pay for it as well. So that is a market opportunity for CSPs as well. And that increases with company size. So larger SMBs, nearly 6 in 10 of those are willing to pay an additional, or pay extra for an additional service. And then propensity to switch. You know, we're getting indicators that there is more engagement in cybersecurity that is building, and this need to be protected, and a willingness to pay. So when we asked respondents, would you swap your ISP if they offered a security service? You can see 7 in 10, which is well, it is would in 2023 would switch. So it's the same, it's roughly the same proportion as 2022. So that's again, it's another market opportunity to gain customers and even retain loyal customers as well.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think this is quite remarkable, right? When you think about the hassle, the complication of switching providers, you have to think about who is going to be the next provider. Are they going to provide me with a good service, good connectivity, no interruptions? So they are willing to take that risk only because there is security as part of the package. So to me, that is telling how important it is these days to offer security as part of the package.
Yeah.
Right. The risk of not being protected outweighs the risk of you know, switching.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Indeed.
there's a strong current of need here.
And again, even though we saw price as a bit of a barrier, they're still willing to increase their spend to get the right IT security solution. So comparing the last financial year to the coming financial year, you can see there's roughly about a 20-30% increase in spend that they're willing to put in or invest into protecting their business. And that's consistent across all the countries that we surveyed. So, you know, $821 per year in the US, 739 in Canada, and Germany 816 euros. So, you know, it is good to see that, and it is increasing as well, which again indicates this need to be protected. Let's summarize those findings. As Michael said, there is a report that's that's going to be sent around, sorry, after the webinar, but so I'll just touch on some of the key trends. So we've seen that SMBs lack a dedicated IT security resource. They're not IT security experts. They're busy. They're lawyers, doctors, accountants. SMBs have registered an increase in cyber security incidences. That can only increase. And when things continue to increase, you know, then the need to get protected will also increase. We've seen that larger SMBs and FS seem more vulnerable, etc. They feel most vulnerable from outdated technology and remote personal devices. So maybe there's a perception that the tech that they've got at that moment, or the way their business is set up remotely and so forth, how can everything be protected? So they feel vulnerable. But they're not doing enough to protect themselves at the moment. So, you know, access to inappropriate content is still available to over half of the SMBs. So, and even that's an increase from 2022. Then, as we've mentioned, it's a hassle-free security solution that SMBs are looking for. They want complete protection, but it has to be simple to implement. And they want to go to a trusted provider to get that solution. And those are top priorities for them. They are willing to pay extra for it as well. You know, so the risk of a cyber attack is going to probably hinder their business going concern. So pay for the right security solution. And that's a good thing. So, but also it's a barrier. So you've got to be, you know, get the right balance of price. And CSPs are missing an opportunity to engage with SMB and security products. So, you know, SMBs are going elsewhere, but, you know, they will turn to CSPs for security solutions if they were to offer them.
Okay, so thank you, Stephen, for that overview. And as mentioned, the detailed report will be sent to you. And so let me pose the following question. And that is, why do we think there's a growing opportunity for SMB security services? And thank you for asking. It's pretty straightforward. We did the survey, we saw the results. We firmly believe that the situation is much worse than what the survey shows. Okay, so for example, Accenture, they came out with a very detailed cybercrime study, and it shows that 43% of cyber attacks are on small businesses. And so that means, more than probably 1 in 5 or 2 in 10 or however many the survey showed. It seems to be underreported. I just saw today some website called Security Magazine talked about 60% of SMBs in North America experiencing attacks. The FBI in the United States, the European Union SME survey, these all show much higher numbers, consistently in Europe, 28%, in the US, half of the complaints, more than half of the complaints to the FBI were coming from small businesses. And so it seems like the problem is even worse than what we saw. And here's a report from the UK, and you can look across it from left to right. As the company gets bigger, there's a much higher reporting percentage. So again, you could say, well, maybe that's because the bigger the company is, the more likely they are to get attacked. But we think it is, and the conclusion of the report is that the smaller the company, the less likely to be aware that they were attacked, because they don't have the resources in-house to even realize that they've been breached, that they've lost, data, that they're, perhaps, I don't know, passwords and so on have been lifted. When you have a very strong phishing attack and you get a message from your bank, okay, you know something's going on. But it seems that there's a lot going on under the radar, and they're just missing it. And so they need comprehensive solutions, and as we saw, they want them to be hassle-free. We looked around, and we did see, we did the survey as Stephen mentioned a year ago. We did the survey again this year, and we saw pretty much steady growth, across the year. Not dramatic numbers, although, as I said, outside sources are looking at even bigger numbers, but the incidents themselves did go up even in our survey. Being too busy seems to be a more serious problem. The desire for hassle-free is only growing. There's an increase in the willingness to pay the CSP to deliver a solution. And again, this issue of switching CSPs, which is on the one hand shows that you can grow your business, and on the other hand shows that you're at risk of losing business, right? So all of these trends indicate, as we've been saying, there is this strong business opportunity if you can bring the right solution to the market. And then finally, willingness to spend, we saw it growing. But here is I think it's a worldwide survey that Statista did, and they're looking at spending by SMBs. So it's very targeted, this data point. And from 2020, where they have hard data, and looking at trends moving up to 2025, they see SMB spending going from 57 billion up to 90 billion in US dollars. So even though they're small companies, there's a lot of them. And they are, they understand that they need to spend money to protect themselves because they don't know how to do it themselves. And so you then ask me, how can Allot help you seize this opportunity? So I'm glad you I'm glad you asked that as well. And the answer, for example, a year ago we shared with you that Verizon had announced that they are taking a solution of ours for part of their SMB security business. And this was back in November. And now in July, they launched it, right? And they're excited to launch this best-in-class security and data protection for their business customers. And they, in their own reports, show that, small businesses account for external breaches account for 94% of the breaches that these companies are experiencing. So the outside world is zeroing in on them and breaching them and threatening them and attacking them. And so here's a small commercial in which we are congratulating Allot. Allot is congratulating Verizon for selecting us. So, of course, we are very excited about this. It's not our only customer, but it is a huge tier 1 US customer that is saying our SMB connected customers are at risk, and we are going to provide them a security solution that hits all of those criteria that we saw earlier. It's relatively inexpensive, it's completely hassle-free, it's comprehensive, and it's based on our network secure product. And we're going to now hear about that product from Eduardo, our product management director. So over to you, Eduardo.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. So if I was to summarize everything we just discussed, what I would say is there is clearly a need for a solution. This solution is going to be highly valuable by SMBs, but there is a big but, right? Because this solution has to be simple and straightforward, okay? Straightforward and cost-effective. And this is quite important, and this is the need we are looking to address with the solution. So what we have here in front of us is a simplified representation of what can be a converged solutions provider. So on the top, you have the radio access, at the bottom, you have the router access, then the CSP network, and then, of course, the internet. And it all revolves around the concept of zero touch and user-centric protection. Let me start with the first solution. So here we have Network Secure. Network Secure is going to sit directly on the network of the operator and is able to provide protection for both mobile as well as fixed networks, and this is including FWA. Okay. And then we have a Business Secure. Business Secure is enabled by an agent, a lightweight, thin agent that sits on the router provided by the operator that is going to provide an extra level of visibility and controls over the network that I will cover later. And as an operator, you can decide to go just for network secure. Some of them do, right? So just for mobile network or just for fixed network or for both. They can go for business secure or they can go for a combination, okay? But the main value is that we have Allot Secure, which is the platform that is orchestrating everything, providing unified configuration and reporting for the SMB owner. And here we see what it can look like for an SMB owner. Here is just used for representation purposes, this picture here. But the configuration interface is per subscriber, and it can be provided as a separate app. It can be a web interface, a web portal, a web page. It can be integrated into an existing customer care app. But at the end of the day, the concept is to provide value in the simplest way possible. Okay. So here we have the SMB owner who is creating policies for the salespeople. As an example, where he's activating security and blocking gambling, okay? But for Matt from finance, he's also blocking enabling security, okay, protection. He's also blocking gambling, but in this particular case, he wants social networks to be blocked for him as well. So he's pushing these policies on the app, on the interface, but then in the end, Allot Secure is picking those up and processing them and enforcing them on both business secure and network secure. And then the solution is going to know essentially that whenever taking Matt as an example, whenever Matt is in the office, business secure will know that security is on, gambling is blocked, social networks is blocked, and the same thing will happen when he is on the 4G, 5G network. And now let me take you through the solutions in more detail. So we have network secure. Network secure, as well as business secure, has two core services called threat protection and content filtering. So threat protection essentially is enabled by default normally. It's blocking all types of malware like ransomware, adware, and others. As well as botnets and phishing. Content filtering is all about blocking certain content as configured by the SMB owner. The values that is delivered from the network, it's providing very high penetration rates due to it. It provides a robust filtering as well, and it's device agnostic because it's sitting on the network. Also, we very recently introduced the network firewall, enabling the SMB owners to also leverage firewalling capabilities, but we have implemented it in the simplest way possible so that basically pretty much anyone can understand them. Okay, so simplified firewall to address key use cases for the SMB owner. And then the antivirus that is enabling to provide that additional layer of protection from the network. Moving on to business secure. Business secure is providing an enhanced level of visibility and controls in the local network, mostly because it's sitting on the on the router itself. Okay. So it's providing internal network visibility and identifying, for example, weaknesses like weak passwords in the network, identifying port forwarding configuration that normally is not expected, also identifying attacks like brute force attacks and port scan attacks, and as well as new IoT connection attempts. Router hardening, enabling to provide enhanced security for the router itself with features like restricting communication to safe destinations, and as well as DNS tampering and identification of weak Wi-Fi passwords. And also automated classification of connected devices, okay, because it's sitting on the router, it can see the devices connecting, it can identify them to tell you basically, you know, there is an iPhone connecting right now.
Okay, so two great solutions that CSPs can offer to their SMB customers, providing that, you know, that nice cluster of hassle-free, inexpensive, comprehensive, easy to use. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. So let's try and summarize the unique value proposition, and this applies to essentially the Allot solutions in general. Okay. So first of all, the main premise is that there are no IT skills required. We are not expecting an IT admin at the other end. Okay, the objective is to make sure that anyone really can configure these solutions. There is no IT infrastructure or equipment required, so the SMB doesn't have to acquire any physical appliance or doesn't have to have anything. There are essentially no prerequisites in the network.
Okay, so just to make that point clear, everything is actually being done through the network and that small agent, if you have the router option that's deployed on the router. Nothing else needs to be added. So it's the easiest solution imaginable.
Exactly. It's also built to be set and forget. Okay, that's the approach. So if we are looking at security only, there is nothing really you need to do other than signing up to the service. Even if you go to content filtering or to the firewall capabilities, even then the rules are extremely simple to configure. So you set them up and essentially you can forget about them. There is no need to constantly review the configuration, to maintain it. Of course, there are reporting options available, but only if you want to check.
And all of the security, protection, and filtering capabilities are automatically updated, behind the scenes. So it's not like an endpoint that you've got to download and install and then configure and then update and then patch and then a new version is released and all of that on all of your devices. As Eduardo said, all you do is sign up for the service. And because the CSP is providing it through the network, you're constantly protected and you're constantly up to date. So it's really set and forget.
Right. Also, there are no additional providers. I think this is quite of an important point. As an SMB, I have too much on my plate already to also having to look for example, a firewall provider, a firewall vendor, an antivirus solution out there. I mean, it's just too complex. I have no time. So if the provider, the telco provider, is providing this for me, is doing the homework for me, and as we saw before, as part of the survey, they're really pretty much expecting it from the provider, then that's it. It's a no-brainer. From zero touch to device level visibility, so that you choose, you can decide to go with network secure only, as we said, or take another step and say, I'm also offering business secure. SaaS model, quite important. So these businesses cannot really predict what is going to happen to them 2 months down the road. So it's quite important that there are no upfront costs, that they can sign up and cancel the service pretty much whenever they like. Robust security and content filtering, quite important as well. So no point in doing all the previous things if then the service is not adequately protecting the business. So we pride ourselves in our security and content filtering capabilities. And affordable to any business, also quite critical. We saw it on the stats. Cost is one of the main factors they look at. So it has to be affordable to any business.
And just another point here, depending on the country, there are, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of SMBs out there. It's a huge, huge, huge customer base. And so, if you get a percentage of your SMB customers to sign up for this, you've got a steady stream of monthly revenue, from this large customer base. That's an add-on to what you're already charging, but it's not such a big add-on that, it's hard for an SMB to take on. But if you multiply it out, it becomes a significant revenue for you.
Exactly. And also quite important to mention our guidance, the guidance on go-to-market from our experts in the cyber marketing team. We have operators using our solution worldwide, and that has given us a lot of knowledge that we can share with new customers and guide them and help them to make sure that not only at launch, but also afterwards, the solution is a success.
Okay, so thank you, Eduardo. I hope you've all got a good picture that we've got, the solution that matches the need of your customers and gives you a way to deliver it also easily through your network. And so if I can just summarize kind of the whole picture here, from the survey, we learned that SMBs are increasingly aware that they are at cyber risk. They know that the world's dangerous and they're worried, and they're especially worried about IoT. And yet they're overwhelmed because they know that they don't know, right? They are not experts. They are experts on their business. And so they need help. They need help, and they're expecting you to provide that help. You give them the connectivity. It should be secure connectivity, just like the water company gives you clean water. They value security. We saw from a number of different sources, including our survey and including Statista, they're willing to pay, then they're budgeting more and more money for it. And in fact, they would even switch CSPs, despite the hassle, to get this better cybersecurity. So you've got an opportunity, you've got an almost captive audience because they are already your customers. Give them what they're looking for. It's a great opportunity. Allot Secure is the #1 field-proven network-based cybersecurity solution, delivering it through the CSP network. We'll be happy to speak to you. Come to our website, get in touch. We'd like to help you help your customers. It's a win-win-win. So thank you very much for being with us on this webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.